Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Cold Case Christmas. In this episode, we're going to look at the mysterious disappearance of 24-year-old Daniel Robinson. This is probably one of the better known cases that I'm going to cover in this mini-series. Some true crime channels have covered him. He's had some media interest. His father David continues to keep Daniel's face, name and the case alive in the media. He's doing a lot of work to search for his son. But what happened to Daniel Robinson? Let's get into his story. So Daniel was last seen leaving a job site in Buckeye, Arizona. This was on June 23rd, 2021, around 9:15 a.m. He was a field geologist, and after graduating in 2019, he'd moved to the Phoenix area. He was driving his 2017 blue-grey Jeep Renegade. He's described as 5'8", of African-American descent, about 165 pounds at the time of his disappearance. He's got black hair, brown eyes, and he's missing part of his right forearm, including his hand. So as I said, Daniel was last seen leaving his job site in Buckeye, Arizona on June 23rd, 2021. Now, actually, a federal law enforcement officer had seen Daniel that morning cleaning his Jeep. And he told David, Daniel's dad, that Daniel seemed clear-headed. They'd spoke briefly about target practice. And the official confirmed that there was no damage to the Jeep at that time. However, a work colleague, Ken Elliott, says something slightly different about Daniel's demeanour and behaviour on that morning. Ken worked as a pump technician and worked with Daniel, and he reported that he'd met Daniel at the desert site that day to check a well, but they were kind of waiting around for a storm to pass. And while gazing out into the desert, Daniel had suggested that they leave work and go and relax in Phoenix. Ken passed up that opportunity, but Daniel went ahead alone, and that is the last anyone saw of him. Daniel's Jeep was found abandoned in a ravine about 3 miles away from his work site in the Arizona desert about a month later. It was in a dishevelled condition, the airbags had deployed and the sunroof panel kicked out. Daniel's personal belongings, including his orange construction vest, boots, pair of blue jeans, backpack, laptop, cell phone and apartment keys were all in the Jeep, but there was no sign of Daniel. One theory is that he crashed and he was disoriented and just wandered into the desert. Maybe he didn't have a signal, so didn't take his phone, banged his head, disoriented, wandered away, and he's succumbed to the elements. That's one theory. But David's not so sure about the accident theory. David enlisted the help of Jeff McGrath, a former cop and vehicular crimes investigator. When Jeff McGrath saw a photo of the car, he said it was odd, because he says the damage to the vehicle didn't match the location it was found in, a desert ravine. According to the police report, the Jeep had suffered significant damage consistent with the frontal impact that had caused it to roll. The front window was shattered and there was substantial damage to the lower front, as well as the windshield and roof. Jeff was sceptical about the roll theory. He obtained the car's black box, which allowed him to ascertain that the car was going about 30 miles per hour before the airbags deployed. That sent up alarm bells for Jeff, who used his own vehicle to see if that speed was possible in that rugged terrain. His experiment indicated that it wasn't. Also, the car had travelled 11 miles after the airbags were deployed, which is odd. That is weird. And he said that it raised his suspicions even further. How did it manage to drive that far with the airbags deployed? Police did their own investigations into the vehicle in November and disputed his findings. The car attempted to drive up the side of the ravine and rolled, their report concluded. But those extra 11 miles, can we explain that? David's frustrated by the lack of movement on the case. In late July 2021, so just over a month after he disappeared, a human skull was found in an area south of where Daniel's vehicle had been recovered. But tests indicated that it wasn't Daniel's remains. The Buckeye Police Department announced in September that they had worked with a number of agencies to search over 70 square miles with the assistance of ATVs, cadaver dogs, drones and helicopters. Daniel's dad continues to search. He won't give up hope of finding Daniel. But what happened to him? As part of the investigation in October 2021, they announced that Daniel had been texting a woman he met while delivering for Instacart and reportedly was invited inside and exchanged numbers with her. Later text messages showed that he'd visited her home several times unannounced, and the woman said she felt uncomfortable by his actions. So speculation grew that, as a result of him behaving strangely on the day he disappeared, and then this woman coming out, and was he a spurned suitor? Was he suicidal? But he didn't seem to be, no. There weren't reports of him being depressed. Why would his car be in a state of dishevelment if he'd committed suicide? Had he intentionally rolled his car to try and make it look like an accident? It seems a bit far-fetched that someone suicidal would do that, in my opinion. Now, on October 9th, 2021, a second set of human remains were discovered, and again sent for DNA testing, but that wasn't found to be Daniel either. The family has a GoFundMe page to help gather donations. They have a petition to keep an interest in the case. They also spread the word on social media, and David has appeared on some YouTube channels to just keep Daniel's case out there. The family deserve answers. Daniel deserves to come home. But even though it's a relatively recent case, there's no leads. The trail just went cold. Daniel just seems to have vanished into thin air. I mean, what are the options? Accident? Suicide? Foul play? Or he's wandered off on his own? None of it makes sense. It's such a strange case. I've been following this case quietly since the beginning of it. But if you want to follow regular updates on the case, David has a Twitter account which is called Please Help Find Daniel. I'll leave a link to that in the description box. What do you think about this case? What do you think happened to Daniel Robinson? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Michelle, hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next episode of Cold Case Christmas. Bye guys.